In 1997, a company called Apple was 90 days away from bankruptcy. They had one last option: bring back the man they fired 12 years earlier. The man they called impossible to work with, abrasive, irrational, obsessive. The man no other company in Silicon Valley would hire. And in the 12 years of being fired and being brought back, something happened to Steve Jobs that nobody in the boardroom understood. Something that turned a difficult founder into the most dangerous product thinker who ever lived. But before I tell you what that was, I need to tell you something about Steve Jobs that will absolutely change how you see every Apple product you have ever touched. Steve Jobs never had a single original idea his entire life. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is absolutely genius. Jobs had one favorite quote. He repeated it his entire career. Picasso had a saying: good artists copy, great artists steal. And we've always been shameless about stealing great ideas. Most people hear that and they think it's arrogance. It is not. It is a precise description of a thinking system. Let me explain. Copying means taking something and reproducing it. Stealing means taking something and understanding it more deeply than the person who has created it and making it so completely your own that nobody recognizes where it came from. Jobs never copied ideas, he understood them more deeply than the person who's actually invented them. And to understand how, we need to go back to one specific afternoon in 1979. December 1979. Jobs visits Xerox PARC, the Palo Alto Research Center, the most advanced technology laboratory on earth. Xerox engineers showed him something extraordinary: a screen with windows, icons, folders, a small device called a mouse. Point, click, move, select. No typing, no commands, just touch and navigate. Jobs later said he felt like he'd just seen the future of computing and he was standing in a room full of people who had absolutely no idea as to what they were sitting on. Xerox saw a research project, Jobs saw a revolution in making. But here's the part nobody tells you. Jobs did not just copy what he saw, he went back to Apple and spent 3 years making it better than what Xerox actually built. He added color, sound, simplicity. He took what Xerox had invented and built it into something that Xerox could possibly never build. In 1984, Apple launched the Macintosh, built on ideas from the Xerox PARC, and made it into something that the world had never seen. Jobs had one question he asked before every single product decision, and it terrified most of his engineers. Not because he was trying to ask a very aggressive question, because it was impossible to answer that question badly without exposing every weakness in the room. Let me explain. The question had only 3 words. Is this great? Not is this good? Not is this better than the competition? Not will this sell? Is this great? And if the answer to that question was not an immediate unconditional yes, the product went back. Weeks of work, months of engineering, back from zero. Most companies optimize for good enough. Jobs refused to ship anything that was not great, and that single standard applied relentlessly is the entire explanation for Apple's design dominance. 2001, digital music players already existed. Creative Technology had one, Sony had one, Diamond Multimedia had one. They were all built by engineers asking, how do we store more songs? Jobs actually asked a completely different question. What does a person actually feel when they are listening to music? The answer was not storage, not audio quality, not better battery life. The answer was freedom. 1,000 songs in your pocket, same technology as every competitor. One fundamentally different question that was asked at first. That, ladies and gentlemen, is first principles thinking applied to product design. Now, I can tell you what happened in those 12 years. Jobs is fired from Apple in 1985. Most people think that this was the low point. No, it was actually the point that was making him. After leaving Apple, Jobs bought a small failing animation studio from George Lucas for $10 million. Nobody wanted it, nobody believed in it. He renamed it as Pixar, and over the next 10 years, Jobs learned something at Pixar that he could have possibly never learned at Apple. He learned how to tell stories. Toy Story, A Bug's Life, Monsters Inc. Every Pixar film was built on one fundamental principle: the story must make you feel something first. Technology serves the emotion, not the other way around. Jobs brought that principle back to Apple in 1997. Every Apple product after his return was not a technology product that happened to have a good story, it was a story that happened to use technology. And that shift from technology first to emotion first is what exactly Microsoft, Nokia, and BlackBerry never understood, and part of the reason why all three of them ended up losing the race. When Jobs returned to Apple in 1997, the company had over 350 products. Jobs cut it to 10 products, not because the others were bad, because they were not great. He said, "I am as proud of what we don't do as what we do." And then he said something that most people heard but did not completely understand. Deciding what not to do is as important as deciding what to do. That's true for companies, and that's also true for products. Jobs said his most important decisions were not what Apple built, they were what Apple refused to build. And to understand why this completely matters, you need to understand what Jobs saw that absolutely nobody else in the Silicon Valley could see. Let me explain. 2007, Jobs announces the iPhone. Microsoft CEO Steve Ballmer responds on camera: "There's no chance the iPhone is going to get any significant market share. No chance. It doesn't have a keyboard." Ballmer saw a phone without a keyboard. Jobs saw the first computer you could carry in your pocket, and that was a revolution. Every smartphone before the iPhone had a keyboard because phones had always had keyboards. Jobs asked why. The keyboard existed because of a habit, not logic, not any engineering necessity. Habit. Remove the keyboard, the screen doubles, and suddenly the phone becomes a browser, a camera, a map, a music player, a gaming device, an entirely different category of product. First order, remove the keyboard, lose typing. Second order, remove the keyboard, gain everything else. Palmer saw the first order. Steve Jobs saw the second order. Now, I can give you the complete system, the 5 questions Jobs ran underneath every single product decision. 1. What is this actually for? Not what does it do, what does a human being feel when they use this? 2. What assumption is everyone making that nobody has questioned? The keyboard, the CD drive, the physical home button. Every breakthrough innovation came from questioning something everyone accepted as inevitable. Question 3. What is the simplest possible version of this? Not the most feature rich, the simplest. Complexity is easy, simplicity is the hardest thing in the world. 4. Would I be proud to have built this? Not will it sell, would I be proud? 5. Is this great or is it just good? Good ships great, changes the world. Jobs only shipped great. Here is the lesson most people actually take away from Steve Jobs, and I listen to this every single time where people talk about different ideas, think differently, follow your passion, stay hungry. Fine, they're all good lessons, but they're all surface level. Jobs succeeded because he was relentlessly honest about what things actually were versus what people assumed they had to be. He looked at a phone with a keyboard and asked why. He looked at a computer requiring typing and asked why. He looked at an MP3 player with bad design and asked why. Almost every time the answer was the same: habit. Why is the most dangerous question in any industry? Because the answer almost always reveals that the thing everyone accepts as inevitable. It's just the thing that nobody has ever questioned yet. And here is the first principles connection. Every mental model we have covered on this channel, second order thinking, inversion, the map is not the territory, they all share one underlying principle: strip away the assumptions, see what is actually there. Jobs applied that principle not to investing or any major critical decision making, but to objects in your hand. That is first principles thinking destroyed at the highest level possible. Here is what you take away from this video and use tomorrow morning. Framework 1, the why question. Before your next major decision, ask why the current solution exists in the current form. Not how to improve it, why does it exist this way at all? The answer will either confirm it is the best solution or show you exactly where the opportunity lies. Framework 2, the simplicity test. Take your next project, cut everything that is not essential, ask what is the simplest version of this that is still great. What remains after cutting, that, ladies and gentlemen, is your product. Framework 3, the 1,000 no's. Every yes is a no to 1,000 other things. Before your next yes, ask what are you giving up. The most valuable word Jobs ever used was a no. Apple fired Steve Jobs in 1985. He spent 12 years learning how to tell stories at Pixar. He came back in 1997 and built the most valuable company in history. Not because he got smarter, because he got clearer. He stripped away every assumption, asked why about everything, and built only what was great. The thing everyone accepts as inevitable is always almost just the thing nobody has absolutely questioned yet. That question is available to you right now. If this kind of thinking is what you're after, First Principles Club is exactly where you should be. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and turn on the notification. Next video will be on the sunk cost fallacy, the thinking error keeping you in jobs, relationships and decisions that stopped serving you long time ago. Right here, it's going to be up here. Think from scratch, build what matters. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I will see you tomorrow.